A long time ago, there lived a married couple in the village of Okun. The couple lived a simple life and were known for their good heart and kindness. The man, Akin, was a farmer. His beloved wife Beauty was a trader who sold in the market. The couple were happy together, but they had no child. However, they believed that one day the gods would hear their prayers and grant them a child. As time passed, Beauty got pregnant and bore the most beautiful baby girl. Her mother named her Ella. Ella was so beautiful that everyone in the village admired her. As Ella grew up, she became even more beautiful. Her parents showered her with love and care. They made sure to teach her how to be hardworking, polite and respectful to her elders. However, the most tragic thing that could happen to any child happened to Ella. One unfortunate day, Ella's parents got sick and both of them died. Ella was left alone, heartbroken and devastated by her parents' passing. She cried for days upon days, but there was nothing she could do to turn back the hands of time. Ella then went on to live with her grandmother. Ella then grew to become a very beautiful lady. However, despite her beauty, she never allowed it get to her head. She was still hardworking as she had always been. Due to her kindness and hardworking nature, the village people loved her. Ella, owing to the tragedy of her parents, only managed to have two close friends, Akin and Bisola. Bisola was Ella's best friend and had known her since they were both children. Ella's mother was a friend of Bisola's mother before she died. As time passed, Bisola also lost her mom. Her father then remarried to another woman called Tosin. After both losing their mom, Ella and Bisola were inseparable. Despite their tragedy, Ella and Bisola found peace with each other as friends. Ella also taught Bisola how to weave. She had learned the art from her mother and grandmother and had perfected it so well that the villagers acknowledged her for it. However, a few villagers, especially the women, were jealous that Ella was too beautiful and much more gifted than their daughters and children. One of such persons who nursed such thoughts towards Ella was Bisola's stepmother, Tosin. One morning, Tosin called Bisola, her stepdaughter, to talk to her. She advised her that she should stop moving with her friend Ella. Bisola was a bit confused and asked why. Tosin then told her stepdaughter that Ella was always coming out first in everything they did, while she was always coming out as the second best. She told Bisola that if she wants to become the best, she needs to stop moving around with Ella. Bisola then told her stepmother that she would think about what she'd said. However, deep within Bisola, she knew that nothing was going to make her stop her friendship with Ella. However, she was not sure what her stepmother was trying to gain by separating them. However, what Bisola did not understand was simple. Her stepmother Tosin did not have a child of her own. So she wanted to make sure that all the glory in the village comes to Bisola. That way, they would indirectly come to her. If she could make sure that her stepdaughter became the center of attraction in the village, all the favor meeting Ella would come to her. A few weeks later, the village was holding a competition for the young maidens in the village. The competition was to showcase the beautiful and artistic works of the beautiful women in the village and their weaving prowess. Since most of the girls were aware that Ella could weave, they always tried to put in their best in order to come out at the top. However, Ella always ended up coming out as the first. Since Ella taught Bisola, Bisola would always take second place. That day, Bisola decided to go visit her friend Ella. Her stepmother then called her and gave her a bowl of food to give to Ella and her grandmother. Tosin told Bisola that since Ella's grandmother was sick and Ella was the one taking care of her, she wanted to do something nice for them. Tosin, however, emphasized that Bisola should not mix up the food, stating that the food for Ella should not be eaten by her grandmother and vice versa. Bisola agreed and then stepped out of the house. As soon as she came out, she saw Akin. Akin was a funny, handsome young man who had been close to Ella and Bisola at a young age. His parents died few months after his birth, so he never knew them. However, his grandfather took care of him and raised him to be good and responsible. His grandfather was also a medicine man, and so Akin learned the art from him. As Akin met up with Bisola, both friends began to laugh and gist. Soon they got to Ella's house. Bisola and Akin asked Ella about her grandmother. She then told Ella that her stepmother had prepared food for her and her grandmother. Ella then told Bisola that she and her grandmother had already eaten and she wanted to go to the competition ground early. Akin then cut in and stated that he was hungry, but he didn't want to be rude since the food wasn't meant for him. Bisola then had no choice but to give Akin the food. Akin then told them that after eating he would come over to meet them at the competition ground. At the competition, all the ladies did their best and presented their works. However, like most people knew already, Ella came out first position. Bisola came out second, while the rest of the girls got other positions. The village elder then came and gave the winning prize to Ella. Bisola was happy and so was Ella. The villagers in the background were also excited. There was just one last competition remaining, and it was the final competition. The winner of the final competition would be given a gift from the king and the prince in the village. Ella, Bisola, and the girl who took the third position were all anticipating the final competition. Meanwhile, among the village crowd, Ella noticed that Akin was nowhere to be found. Later that evening, when Bisola and Ella got to Ella's house, they saw that Akin was asleep with the empty food bowl beside him. Ella's grandmother then told them that Akin had been asleep for hours. She stated that as soon as he ate the food, he fell to the ground asleep. Bisola and Ella tapped Akin several times, hitting him hard. Eventually, they even had to pour water on his face before he eventually woke up. After he's awake, Akin apologized for missing their competition, stating that he didn't know how and when he fell asleep. Ella told Akin not to worry and told him and Bisola that they should return home as the day had already gotten dark. So, the two friends then left Ella's house. When Bisola arrived home, her stepmother told her that she heard that Ella was the one who won the competition. She then asked if she had given Ella the food that she had prepared. Bisola then explained everything that happened with the food. How Akin ate the food because Ella and her grandmother had already eaten when she got there. Bisola's stepmother, Tosin, said nothing after hearing Bisola's words. She just went to eat and then went to sleep. That night, Bisola then pondered the whole situation that occurred. She then realized that her stepmother was trying to disqualify Ella from the competition. If Ella had eaten the food and had not come, she would have been disqualified and she would not have been able to compete in the final competition. Owing to this, Bisola then decided that she would no longer underestimate her stepmother again. The next day, Ella prepared food and served her grandmother. Her grandmother thanked her and told her that she was a blessing and she was proud to have her as a granddaughter. She also said that wherever her parents were, she knew they would also be proud. Ella smiled with contentment. However, the next words her grandmother said was what then changed everything. Her grandmother told Ella that she should stop using her money to buy medicine since it was extremely expensive. She emphasized that because she was using the money she got from her weaving competitions to buy medicine, she had been unable to save money for herself. Ella's grandmother stated that she was old and had lived her life and that she wasn't want Ella to use all her money, strength and time to take care of her at the expense of her youth. "My child, you are young and beautiful. I am old and may join my ancestors soon. I don't want you to carry my burden," Ella's grandmother said. Ella was not happy with what her grandmother told her. She became very sad instantly. She begged her grandmother to finish her food. Ella then went to the nearby forest to cry. Ella was crying because she had lost her mother and father so young due to an illness. As a result, she was extremely terrified of losing her grandmother. She didn't want to be alone in the world with no family to talk to or relate to. Ella cried for such a long time that her eyes slowly began to turn red. She was so carried away by her thoughts that she was unaware that someone was approaching her from behind. The person was Akin. Akin was shocked to see that Ella was crying uncontrollably. He spoke to her and comforted her. Akin had gone to pick some herbs inside the forest for his grandfather. After Ella opened up to Akin about why she was crying, Akin told her that everything would be fine. He promised her that whatsoever happened, he would be there for her. He also reminded her that Bisola was also her friend and together they would protect her against anything. Ella was reassured by Akin's words. She then wiped her tears and stood up. Akin then escorted her home, telling her to rest and sleep well. Later that evening, when Akin got home, he was greatly disturbed by the fact that he saw Ella crying. Akin begged his grandfather that he wanted to have a conversation with him. Akin told his grandfather about Ella's grandmother's condition and asked if they would be able to help her. Akin's grandfather explained to Akin that he was familiar with Ella's grandmother's condition and that he could make the expensive medical Ella was always using her hard-earned money to buy. However, he stated that he lacked two essential ingredients: dragon leaves and moon roots. He emphasized that these ingredients were extremely hard to find and that was why the medicine was expensive to even buy. Akin asked his grandfather where he could get the ingredients. His grandfather told him that as far as he remembered, they could be gotten in the forest in a faraway village. To get to the village, someone would have to cross 3 rivers. Akin then begged his grandfather that he wanted to go. His grandfather permitted him but begged him to be very careful. The next morning, Akin journeyed out of the village to look for the special medicinal ingredients for Ella's grandmother. After crossing the rivers, he made mention of he finally arrived at the forest. It took him 3 days to get there. Akin then took his time to look for the herbs, and when he found it, he journeyed back to his village. The day after Akin arrived, he went to meet Ella in the morning to give her the herbs he and his grandfather had made. The medicine he brought would last Ella's grandmother for 3 months. Ella was so happy and couldn't contain her joy, with tears in her eyes. She hugged Akin, holding him dearly. Akin was happy that Ella would no longer have to use her money to take care of her mother. She would finally be able to plan for herself also. It was just remaining a few days before the final weaving competition in the village. In the meantime, Bisola's stepmother, Tosin, was nursing an evil plan to get rid of Ella once and for all. She then went to meet an evil native priest so that she could charm Ella. The native priest gave Tosin a white ash powder and told her to pour it on Ella. He told her that once she had done that, she just needed to look at Ella and say any animal that comes to her mind. Immediately Ella would transform to that animal. After hearing this, Tosin was satisfied. On the day of the final competition, Tosin knew that Ella would like to go to the competition early. That morning, she gave Bisola a lot of work to do, so she wouldn't be able to go to Ella's house. Bisola then walked past the road where Ella was following to go early to the competition. As she crossed past Ella, she made sure to pour a little portion of the white ash without Ella realizing. As soon as her mission was successful, she then went back home. Later, during the festival when everyone had gathered, Tosin decided to show up. As soon as the competition was about to begin, Tosin looked towards Ella and mentioned snake. Immediately, the one beautiful, adored girl Ella turned into a snake. All of a sudden the whole place was scattered. Everyone began to run out of fear. Bisola had the shock of her life as she saw what happened. What do you think will be Ella's fate in this story? Find out in the next part. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Till we meet again.